And I'm Bill Tucker filling in for Steve tonight, who is observing Rosh Hashanah. Now, before we welcome in our wonderful political panel, our friend Michael Reagan made news earlier when he tweeted out that his mother, Nancy Reagan, if she were alive, would be supporting Hillary Clinton. J.D. Hayward spoke to Michael about this earlier, and he'll be coming up later on Newsmax, but let's hear what he had to say.
When I looked at what Trump said over the weekend, and you just played it, about inferring that you have Hillary Clinton cheating on Bill, and it made fun of her walking the way he walked when she tripped and fell into her car when she had pneumonia. I think turned off more women, certainly turned off my wife and daughter. And I thought, gee, if Nancy was watching this, where would she be with this? And Nancy would be in the HRC column, the Hillary Rodham Clinton column. My father would be absolutely appalled by where this campaign has gone on both sides, but more so on the Republican side, because he thought more of the Republican Party than where Donald Trump is in fact taking it. And that's why I said, if this is where the Republican Party is going to stand, if these are the insinuations they're going to make, then leave the Reagans out.
All right. Make sure you keep it here for the entire interview immediately following this show on Newsmax Prime at 8 p.m. But for now, let's welcome in our panel. Amy Holmes, political analyst with Rasmussen Reports, and Jane Velez Mitchell, founder of JaneUnchained.com. Boy, is that true. And author of Addict Nation, an intervention for America. Ladies, I am not a big fan of people saying dead people would do this or that. But for purposes of entertainment, I'll start with you, Jane. Does it matter that Michael Reagan, in fact, says, oh, this is what my mother would do, Nancy Reagan, in going with Hillary?
I think Ronald Reagan is probably turning over in his grave right now. I know my dad, who was a Goldwater Republican, would have been horrified by the crass vulgarian that is Donald Trump, talking about whether or not, for example, he could have had sex with Princess Diana, a conversation that occurred shortly after her death. Her terrible death, talking about the size of his genitalia. I mean, mocking a disabled reporter. What has this world come to? The Republican Party had always, in my mind, even though I'm not a Republican, been sort of the party of elegance and sort of a certain demeanor. And he has just dragged the whole party down into the gutter.
Amy, go ahead, Amy.
Well, Bill, actually, like you, I do think it's unadvisable or ill-advised to, speak for what a person who's passed away might do, since we don't know all of the circumstances. I think Nancy Reagan would certainly appreciate Hillary Clinton's Reagan Red on that debate stage. But why don't we just talk about the politicians of the Republican Party who have already made it clear that they're not supportive of Donald Trump? I don't think we need to go down this Reagan path, and to look at Donald Trump in terms of policy. And plenty of conservatives do not believe and do not feel that Donald Trump is a conservative. So I think that that's where we should be having the debate.
All right, well, we're going to let that aside now and move on to another issue, and that is Donald Trump's alleged taxes. New York Times today, which I'm sure everyone is now well aware, published what appeared to be Donald Trump's taxes from back in the 90s. Corey Lewandowski, who is also an advisor to Trump and a paid political analyst on CNN, says he thinks that, in fact, Trump ought to sue the pants off the New York Times because he did not release these, he did not give permission to publish them. And in fact, we don't really know if they're Donald Trump's or not. But Amy, if they are, does this disclosure in fact upset you, and why?
Well, I think that they've been authenticated by his own tax account, if I'm not mistaken, that they are his documents, and Marla Maples has co-signed on those documents. But I disagree with Corey about Donald Trump suing the New York Times. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a legal analyst, but from what I've read, he wouldn't really have a lot to stand on in the court of law, and he would have a lot to lose when it comes to discovery, that the New York Times could in return ask for all of this private financial information well beyond the tax return issue, and that might not be good for Donald Trump. But I will tell you this, Rasmussen Reports has asked this question of likely voters, should the candidates release their tax returns, most recent ones, and an overwhelming majority say yes. But I would also add that a majority also believes that the candidates should reveal their health records as well.
Jane.
Well, look, the return address was the Trump Organization. If he should be angry at anybody, it's not the New York Times. It's whoever sent it. And obviously, people in his own inner circle are getting concerned enough about his temperament and his bizarre behavior that they're sort of sending out lifelines to the New York Times and saying, here, look at this. I mean, this is Exhibit A as to why he should have released his tax returns. And how can he claim that he's a brilliant businessman when he lost almost $1 billion in 1 year and has had numerous business bankruptcies? I mean, the man is seriously unfit for the presidency.
Hold on, but you could also say to that a man who lost $1 billion and earned it back, and he can, point to those successes. And as far as the New York Times releasing this tax information, they're not digging into the 33,000 deleted emails on the Clinton side of the ledger. I think a lot of voters, they're seeing this as hypocritical. The New York Times themselves, they claimed a loss in 2014, and the article only insinuates that Donald Trump may not have paid taxes because of this big, write-off or this big loss, but we simply don't know that.
Because he hasn't released his tax return.
But what I'm saying is the New York Times is making unfounded insinuations just based on their reading of the situation instead of their reading of the facts.
And my question, actually, and I'll put this out to both of you, Jane, is does anybody care? Look, I personally want to see tax records, but so far it doesn't seem to. Well, let me quantify. If it affects Donald Trump's ratings in the polls, I'm not sure how it affects it. I think there are a lot of people who are Donald Trump supporters who really don't like government to begin with and don't really care about his tax returns for right or for wrong reasons. So it doesn't seem to have hurt him, or maybe, Jane, I guess you would probably argue he would be in the lead in the polls if he had, in fact, released the tax form.
Really, Jane? You would argue that?
I'm asking Jane. I'm trying to let her be unchained, Amy. So let Jane go here.
Okay, look, this is a man who has invited Russian hackers to enter Hillary Clinton's email system. He has invited people to break the law. He has suggested that Second Amendment people might take care of Hillary's attempts to put certain people on the Supreme Court. I mean, we don't know what kind of business dealings he has. We know he has a big man crush on Vladimir Putin. Who knows what kind of deals he has with Russian oligarchs and other people who may be involved in the underworld, the global underworld.
Well, look,
I mean,
the New York Times could also. The New York Times could.
Russia?
The New York Times could also be digging into the Clinton Foundation and their connection to Russian oligarchs and how that actually may have influenced governmental policy when Hillary Clinton served as Secretary of State. I mean, I couldn't believe it during the debate last Monday that he was getting attacked for potential conflicts of interest, and Hillary was never asked those very same questions when she was raising millions upon millions of dollars from foreign entities, or at least her husband was, while she was Secretary of State. This is very rich territory, I think, for Hillary Clinton's side.
Let me draw a contrast, okay? Raising money for the Clinton Foundation is raising money to save lives and to treat people who are suffering in Africa and other parts of the world. Trump's foundation, he bought a huge portrait of himself, okay, which constitutes self-dealing with his own charity's money.
Well, honestly, I don't know. The Clintons could have well bought pictures for themselves as well.
But
let's not forget, let's put this in.
They bought seats on private planes. They bought, they got that money to pay for a huge entourage. And in terms of the Clinton Foundation, there's been reporting there that actually a very small percentage goes to supporting philanthropic causes, and most of it goes to supporting Clinton Inc.
They've saved millions of lives. If you look at the
Clinton Foundation is separate. The Clinton Foundation is a separate entity.
Let me say this.
Yep.
Donald Trump's foundation was told to stop doing business and stop soliciting funds in New York because he hasn't filed the proper paperwork. This is a man who breaks all the rules of the book. He thinks the rules don't apply to him, and that's dangerous.
And I think all of that could be applied to the nominee of the Democratic Party.
Yeah, unfortunately, we got two candidates here, ladies, that out of 300 plus million people, this is what we come down to, is generally my reaction to this whole deal. I want to end this on something of a lighter note. Toyota today has a robot, and they introduced a robot to the world, and they said this would be an excellent companion for older people, okay, which creeps me out. I say get a dog, get a cat, get a bird, get something that's alive.
Those you have to feed and look after and clean after. It's just this cute little robot. I have to say, I think it's much better than these lifelike dolls that are popular in China. Those are weird.
Well, that's weird. Jane.
Let's Keep it clean. Okay. No, I agree with you, Bill. I think that what we do is we demonize animals in this society, and we don't allow seniors to have contact with them
Yeah.
by preventing them from being in the homes or nursing homes. And you know what? I sleep with 3 dogs. I've never been sick from a dog, but I've gotten sick from people many times. Let's allow seniors to have interaction with all sentient beings, and let's change our society up to be a little kinder towards animals.
But if you want a little robot, you know what? Get yourself a little robot.
I'm with Jane, okay? I'm totally with Jane on this, which is maybe one of the few times I am with Jane. Amy, thank you very much. And Jane Velez, as always, good to see you. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
Up next, we're going to take a closer look at the presidential race, and it's not good news for anybody involved. We'll be talking with John Zogby and John McLaughlin. Keep it right here. Don't go away.